Y'all look fresh and happy, and that's good, and pretty. And I guess the reason I wanted you to come is just this. I think there's some things floating around that I want to make sure that we get right, because that's really important. And I just want to answer any questions that you have. I don't want to necessarily hog your time with my responses and whatever, but I really hope that you'll do this. The most important responsibility that we all have is accountability, and get it right. And so I hope, from the media standpoint, you get it right. And I hope from my standpoint and the legislator's standpoint, we get it right. And if we do something that is irresponsible or whatever, and we get it wrong, then I think that we should be accountable. Accountable. Now that's one ingredient here that I'm a numbers guy. I'm a logic guy. I'm a fact guy. And there's so many people here that they love to do stuff that's going to cause a bad result and then blame it on somebody else and hide behind something else to where they don't have to be responsible for it. Well, I'm not that way. And I believe with all in me that if you cause an event to happen and it becomes detrimental to someone else, you ought to be willing to own it. That's just being accountable. That's not me being, outspoken or mean or overbearing or anything. I just think it's something that this great body here, sometimes we just sidestep. In this world, at least in the world that I've lived in forevermore, when you did something and really just messed something up, there was always consequences, from when I was a kid all through my life and in business and everything that I do. It's the same way here. But we've got a lot of people that do not want to take responsibility for their actions. And I don't think that's right. So the one thing that I'll always do is just this. To the very best of my ability, to the very best of everything that I have in me, if I believe that whatever group has caused an event to happen, that's what I'm going to tell you, And I hope to goodness that if I cause something to happen that is not correct or it's going to hurt people, I want you to tell me that too, because I want to be accountable just like I think everybody else should be. So, with that being said, I do think one other thing that should be said is there's been some reporting happen in regard to revenue numbers. And there was, there's 2 or 3 things here. One is this. If we go back to the debates, when President Cole was sitting there on one side and I was sitting on the other side, and the question was asked me, well, where's the money going to come from? And I said, the money's already coming. We're going to see an increase in severance tax. Long ago, I said that. And honestly, people almost started laughing. Like, are you kidding? We have been so deprived and depressed forever. Are you kidding? Do you really believe such an absurd thought? Well, that's what's happening. It's exactly what's happening. So it is better. Now, here's the area in the reporting, though. We have reported this money that looks like a tremendous amount of money that has come in, that we've just flipped over a rock somewhere and found this money. Well, believe me, we've tried to flip over every rock, but the rocks we're flipping now don't have any money under them, you know. And so that money that you're reporting that just looks so good is monies that are going to be there if we pass the bill that's in front of us. If we don't pass the bill, the amount of severance dollars that we are gaining, which we are gaining, gas led the way in May, coal led the way in April, but the gain that we're having is still nowhere close to getting us even remotely out of this mess. Nowhere even remotely close. So, with that, I'm done. Now you guys ask me. And please ask a bunch of questions, because I want to answer anything and everything that you got. Yes, sir.
I've been trying to figure out the income tax situation for months now. What's the most compelling argument in your mind that reducing the income tax would have a substantial economic effect on our state?
Okay, now, and that's the beauty of being here and talking to you. You know, some of these things we can't answer in just 10 seconds. But let me even go back and just say this, that's a little prerequisite. You know, I put people in separate rooms, and I said, because I didn't want them to cross-contaminate one another, you know, and they do, because when you get an influx of a lot of different ideas, and then you get feelings hurt and everything else, and it just doesn't work. And I ran room to room to room to room for days on end. And through the weekend, I mean, and I tell you this over and over, I think I can very comfortably say this: there's nobody on this planet that's worked just any harder than me. No way. No possible way. With that being said, let's just do a real quick review. From the leadership side, and the other thing I would point out is just this, is it is impossible to deal with 34 senators, 100 delegates, and myself and negotiate any kind of deal. I would let anybody here try to pull that off. I don't care who it is. Somebody else go do it. You get 134 people together that all have got an opinion on what to do, and myself, and you try to figure it out. You can't figure it out. So then what do? You depend on the leadership to communicate with their caucus, and you work with the leadership, 2 or 3 or 4 from each side, and that's what we did. Now, I even got a really absurd question the other day from a caucus that said, well, why haven't you listened to our ideas? And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? I mean, really? I mean, why don't you hear from your leadership? You know, why don't they do their job? You know, instead of, I mean, I can't solicit questions from 134 people or ideas from 134 people and make it work, or we'd be here for 50 years. Now, let's just try to identify the hot buttons. The House, they were really, on the Republican side, were really concerned primarily with the consumer sales tax. That was a real hot button with Armstead. Now, and over on the Republican side of the Senate, they really wanted income tax reform. And from the Dem side, I would think it's fair to say what they wanted was some level of package that was tailor-made toward the common everyday guy, and the common everyday person didn't get hurt much. Now, that's what we've dealt with. And that's how we've tried to deal with this whole thing. Now, we could turn around and say, and here's something, and again, it's going to take some real detail for you to report this and report it accurately, but we could say this. We could say, well, you know, this state's in a dire situation. And since it's in such a dire situation, how could we possibly consider an income tax reduction? Well, the reason we consider that is because that's what the Senate wants to do. Now, the reason we don't consider going to a 7.5% or 7.25% consumer sales tax is that's what Speaker Armstead doesn't want to do. The reason we don't consider just undo these things, y'all. Just take your time, Grant. I know this is a big task. Now, I said the reason we consider the income tax reduction is that was the Senate's one of the main calls of the Senate, and the reason we didn't consider just going to 7.25% or whatever like that on the consumer sales tax, that's one thing that Speaker Armstead didn't want to do. The reason we didn't do this was because it just killed everybody. And the Dems sure didn't want to do that either, did they? Now, you just look at that. You look at that. And that was passed. Remember this now. This was passed, and this is what I vetoed. And it's really important that you see all that because I can't see it from here, but I know this. It's massive cuts to the universities, massive cuts to DHHR, massive cuts to K through 12, no teacher pay raise. It just goes on and on and on. No severance stuff, no roads, no nothing. I mean, this is what I vetoed. We forget this, but this is what I vetoed. Now, back to your question, Brad. I'm the guy, remember the logic guy. And the request is from the Senate side, we need to look at tax reform and reducing the state income tax. Now, I'm going to try to be super fair to everybody here. I want you to listen to this. President Armstead has been, for all practical purposes, whether it be Roman, Tim Miley, President Armstead, or President Carmichael or Speaker Armstead, look, especially in the last go-round, everybody's been great to work with. Now, let's go first to the Senate side, to Brad's question. You need to know this. The Senate, just think of how much they've given and how far they've come. They started out wanting a 20% reduction in the income tax. Then they were willing to go 15 in one year and 5 in the next. Then we went to 12 to 8. Then we went to 7, 7, and 6. And then we went to 7 and triggering, and 7 and triggering, and then 6. Now let's be fair. They've come a long, long, long ways. Now they really have, because they've wanted to try to help. Now the reason, Brad, that you would consider this is just this. Here's a slide, and I guess Grant, if he's not too tired because he did this great work here, maybe he could go get I'll just tell you. I personally believe that lowering the income tax 7% or another 7 or a 6, it is argumentative if that's going to bring people to our state. That's argumentative, okay? I personally believe that it will be a great move for our image and a great move to potentially bring people to our state. That's what I think. But if that's argumentative, But here's the fact that's not argumentative. At 7% and triggering, we are completely safe from the state standpoint. We are completely safe and the numbers completely work. And here's the thing, if the numbers worked and you were completely safe, why would you not want to give money back to the guy that's mowing the grass out here? The average family making $42,000 a year, now these are our numbers and you can get all kinds of different numbers, but our numbers show that the sales tax increase at 6.35 cost this family $19.50 a year. Think with me. If they only have one car, their DMV fees cost them $20. If they only have one car and they drive 20,000 miles, their gas cost increase at 3.5 cents on the wholesale side is going to cost them $35. When you put all that together, their total cost is $74.50. That family right there gets an income tax break of $385. That's why you do it. This is exactly why you do it. If the numbers work and you don't hurt our state and you trigger after that 7, so you know you don't have to worry about anything as far as the well-being of our state, you give this family money because you can. You give that guy out there mowing the grass some money back because you're raising his cost $74, you give him some money back. That's what you do. It doesn't matter whether more people are going to come or not. You can argue that all day long, but you can't argue the fact that you can give that man money back and net he is better off. Somebody else ask something, please. Yes, sir.
Governor, Secretary Hardy is talking about the $170 million in a letter that he's writing today that's going to be added to the budget projections next year to make it $4.225 billion, if my math's right.
Okay.
Is that only contingent upon if your plan gets passed, or do you see the economy improving enough that money's going to come in?
No, that's only contingent upon the budget getting my plan getting passed. That's where the misconception is, and I have no idea why, Secretary Hardy is putting that out, I don't know where that's coming from, but that is only contingent, and let's just go through the math, okay? Here's the deal. You got, in next year, I put in $10 million of increase in severance revenue. It's going to be more than that, okay? I put in $90 million of economic benefit from the roads. It's right in your 6-year deal here, okay? Now, line it says, general revenue economic growth, including state road package. That's got severance in that. It's got $100 million over here, okay? Now, when you come on down and you pick up things like telecommunication and all the broadening of the base and all that kind of stuff, you pick up more money. You put into 6.35, you pick up more money. But then you got to deduct out the income tax situation, and you come to a net number. That's what that is. Now, remember, you're starting with a gigantic, gigantic hole. This is what backfills it. This is what puts you on the right path. Okay, somebody else ask something, please.
Can you give us an update on the budget and revenue negotiations from your perspective?
Here's what I would say. I would say that I go back to this story, and I've got to tell you this because some of you haven't heard this, but I want to take 1 second and tell you this. On Sunday before Memorial Day, I went to my grandparents' grave site where I got the tackle box and the axe before. And if you drive down through Glen Daniels and turn toward Bolt, West Virginia, and go down through Glen Rogers and on to Jesse, which is right in the heart of the coal fields, you're going to drive along in one spot, you're going to come to a spot to where if this is the pavement and you're in this lane, the edge of the asphalt, not the edge of the shoulder, but the edge of the asphalt, the whole mountain's washed away. Now, you may think the roads are bad out here, but you ain't seen nothing. And if you just happened to drift a tire off to the right-hand side of the road, off the asphalt, you're gone. And you may not be found for a week. Now, then you go on a little further and you come to a spot to where there's a black and white sign, no flashing light, just a black and white sign. And it says, alternate with traffic around this curve. And you start around, and as you go around, you notice the entire left side of the whole pavement is gone. It's all gone. It's just gone. Now you tell me, we're costing people $35,000 a day being here. Now, there's all kinds of other despair. You go around another curve, and there's a coal seam that's so beautiful, it's unbelievable. It's probably 5 foot high. It doesn't have much parting in it. It's just perfect. It's steam coal. It's probably not worth a lot of money. And to be just as honest as we can possibly be, we are complete crazies for not tiering the severance tax and not helping our miners out when things are bad. The downside is almost nothing compared to the upside, and the flip of the whole thing is just this: if you don't buy this, you're crazy. Is if we send those miners home and we don't have those miners working, there's a multiplication element called zero, and it doesn't matter what you multiply by it, you get zero. And I would 1,000,000,000 to 1 rather have our miners working and getting something if we can just throw them a little bit of a bone and help when things are really tough. And if you're selling coal in this state for $40 a ton, there is no way to make it, guys. And all you're doing is cocking a gun at everybody's head and waiting for those miners to be sent home forever. The upside on the other side is if coal prices go above $75 on the steam side, and just think about this. In 2008, my company doesn't mine any kind of coal like that. And it's really not my company now, it's my son's. But nevertheless, we don't mine, we're not involved in any way in this type of coal to where we would get, I don't know that we mine any steam coal at all for all practical purposes. But just think about this. At one time in 2008, I sold coal myself for $170 a ton, which was steam coal, FOB the mine. Steam coal. Do you realize if steam coal would go to $75 a ton, we would recoup in this state from severance tax dollars in excess of $400 million just on steam coal. The upside is unbelievable compared to the little teeny bone that we're trying to throw and keep our miners working today. So I went around the curve and I looked at that coal seam. I said, I'm not going to stand for them taking that out. It's too important. And you go a little bit further and you see coal camps and everything that used to be spotless. And now you see despair all over the place. And all I could think about was $35,000 a day would fix that road. And you don't really know that it's not going to be your family that drifts off the pavement. Think about it. That family, if they drift off, they'll have a name. It may not be yours, but they'll have a name. This business of hanging around here like we're doing is not right. Now, I ran room to room to room to room, and we had everybody in the world agree and agree and agree, and then some disagreed. I spent a long time yesterday in the Democratic caucus of the House, and basically I told them just this, and I would tell the Republicans the same thing, whether it be the Senate or it be the Dems on the Senate side, or I would tell all of us the same thing. Think about it. Dr. Gilbert's sitting right here, but I would tell him the same thing too. If I had the votes on one side or the other, I had the votes, and if you vote yes, all that stuff's taken care of. And if you vote no, you're going to close the senior center, or you're going to kill Marshall, or you're going to hurt DHHR, or you're going to hurt K through 12 or our minors or whatever. It's your decision. Your decision. If he decides to vote no, he's accountable. He should own it. That's how I feel. I'm not going to get away from that, no matter what you tell me. Because if he votes no when he can stop something from happening, and that senior center out there closes, he owns it. On the other hand, if the Republicans and the House side or whatever like that decide that they want to dink around and renegotiate, and we've got a great proposal that's right on the table today, and all we do is keep running the bill, and then you get to the point in time in about 10 days where we're going to have to start furloughing people, they own it. They own it. This is a dysfunctional group. They're good people, but this is silly. Right now, what we have as a proposal is this. Hoppy said to me this morning, here's what he said. He said, you know, I'll give you credit for this unorthodox way that you've been running from group to group in this mediation and this stuff you do. That's what he said. I'll tell you what, and I missed this. This was a softball that I missed. You know what I should have said is, you're right, Hoppy. I need to be orthodox because how's it working for us right now? We've proven how to be dead last over and over and broke and everything. Now, we can keep doing that, running that play. I don't think we ought to do that. I'm not going to do that. So, it may be a little unorthodox, but today, and then Hoppy turned to me and said, well, why don't you just do this? Why in the world don't we just do this? Why don't we just say, raise the consumer sales tax to 6.35. Don't cut any more than what we already have and everything. Let's raise that consumer sales tax to 6.35, pass all your roads where you'll have all those jobs and everything, and do the severance tiering like we talked about and everything. And on the income tax side, let's just phase it in real slow with triggers. Now, Brad, you heard him. That's what he said. And I said, for God's sakes, a living, Hoppy, is exactly what I'm saying we got to do. I mean, this is what we got to do right now. And continuing to dink around with it's the wrong thing. Yes, sir.
Governor, a couple months ago you said you would rather take the government shutdown than a bad deal. A couple of questions for you. One, do you still feel that way, and as we're now in June, that you'd rather shut the government down to take what you believe would be a bad deal?
No, Kenny, I don't. And all I can be is just as truthful with you as I can be. And I've been around here long enough to learn a lot more stuff. Here's the thing. I want really badly to protect the common, everyday people. I absolutely will not accept seeing us cut into the bone and hurt our people of West Virginia whether it be disabled or weak or poor or old or whatever. I'm not going to do that, or our universities or whatever. Our schools. We've got to some way put education as our centerpiece. But here's the thing. If we get to the 11th hour and there is no deal anywhere, I hope to the Lord above, and I'll be in that Lord above in the hope, that what we don't do is just make it even worse. I mean, think about this just for a second. If there's no other recourse and we're going to have to kill a bunch of people, there's no point in making it even worse and killing a bunch more. We got to get this thing done.
Follow up. Have your agencies gotten back to you with their contingency plans in the event of?
Yeah, they have.
Scenario happening?
They have.
Got back?
And they're ready. They have to be ready. But it's almost like being ready for a terrorist event that could possibly happen. We don't want this to happen. We absolutely don't want to shut our government down. Somebody else ask something, please. Because I don't want to forget anything. I want to tell you that I do believe that there's a real effort to get us across the finish line, but we ought to be across the finish line today. Not tomorrow. We ought to be across today. Now, I believe this. I believe what ought to happen is, I believe that we could reduce our income taxes by 7% and help a lot of our people. I believe in that. And I believe that we ought to have rock solid triggers that protect us. I believe in that. I believe we've got to go up just a little teeny bit in the consumer sales tax. I believe in it. I believe that we ought to have a tiering in our severance tax and help our miners when things are tough and gain when things are really good. I believe with all in me that education should be the centerpiece of everything, and cutting our universities, especially Marshall and WVU, more beyond the 4.4% is wrong. I believe that. I believe our teachers should have a pay raise, not because I think I'm just in love with our teachers. I just believe this, and Dale's sitting right here. I don't know if Christine's here or not, but I believe that our teachers are undermotivated, and way beyond that, way beyond that, here's the most important ingredient. You realize there's 700 classrooms in this state that don't have a teacher. Now look, whether it be that guy mowing the grass or maybe the guy painting here or whatever, we're talking about our kids. For crying out loud, there's 700 classrooms that don't have a teacher. We have something wrong. It would just be, what is the difference in me saying, let's pay Harold standing right back there, state policeman, let's pay our state policeman $20,000. And we don't have enough state policemen. Well, we want to give everybody in state government a raise, but we don't have enough state policemen. We best better do something about it. We best better do something about it. We've got 700 vacancies for our kids. We better do something. I want this to be over. And I want it to be over right now. And I'm willing to do this. And I don't mean this in any threatening way whatsoever, but I think whomever causes it not to be over, whomever causes harm to others, whatever it may be, needs to be accountable. Me included. I appreciate all y'all coming. I really do. Got a lot of friends here, and I know that you got a lot of great legislators that are trying to work it out. But the last of my last would be just this. We're never going to come up with the perfect deal. I have worked, and I've got a great big one. I've worked my tiny end off. And it hadn't got much smaller, but it's got a little smaller. And I can tell you that I have worked night and day to try to understand the other sides and make it work. Make it work. Be respectful and make it work. Now, you know, you see me come up with theatrics, whether it be a pile of cow dupe or whatever, but you don't see me say, I don't like that person there because they don't have a good job, or they don't do this, or they don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that at all. I am telling you, you got a lot of good people. The problem right now is you got people trying to retrade the deal. We'll never, ever have a perfect deal. And we best better get on with the deal. It's as good as we're going to ever get, and not only that, it's, and forgive me, but it's damn good. If you don't believe that, you're nuts. We spent 23 days here last year in a special session and cost us a ton of money, and what did we achieve? A cigarette tax. 23 days. You think about this thing. What we have at play here is we got a $497 million deficit, and we're not cutting our people beyond, or cutting them to death. We're helping our vets. We're helping our universities. We're helping our coal companies. We're absolutely creating all kinds of instantaneous jobs that are going to put us on a pathway. And the last thing is just this. Think about this. You have a way in all this to stop this terrible drug epidemic. It's all right there in front of us. For $19.50. And this family nets a $310 gain. $42,000, they net a $310 gain. Why not give it to them if the numbers work? We got to get this passed right now. I'm doing all I can do. Thank y'all.